Hey guys, welcome to another East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co-host Ashton, here with my awesome co-host Zach. And Zach, there's a kind of snowstorm going on outside, so like a lot of stuff is going crazy here. A lot of stuff is going crazy with the Rams. A lot of news. The Super Bowl just wrapped up. Real quickly, Zach, your thoughts on a very exciting Super Bowl, like hotly contested, just a rough.
Man, it was a rough game. I mean, there was so much back and forth. There was so much
mm,
influence by the refs. No, honestly, I was hoping this was the outcome. I wanted the Chiefs to lose, and I wanted them to lose in a major fashion. I was pretty blunt about pretty much all season that I did think the Chiefs were kind of, yes, their record was what their record was, but it felt like they were somewhat kind of fake into it. They had a lot of things go in their favor at the end of a game. A lot of low scoring games. Almost all of them were within one scoring possession. Uh, and the Eagles, I think, just had a better team, better offense, better defense. And I think that's what you need. I think Kansas City has been getting by with some of these pieces. But when you don't have a fully cohesive team, I think that kind of became their downfall.
Yeah, they kind of reminded me of that 2020 Rams team where defense was keeping them afloat. Like if we got a lot of lucky breaks in 4 or 5 games and ended up like I feel like that team could have did that if we got lucky a few times, but yeah, it was a disappointing game as a neutral observer. I wanted a good game. I wanted the Eagles to lose because I feel like they didn't necessarily. I don't know. I feel like they
They were
didn't
the,
have
they were the
the
best.
hardest
Here's the
Super
thing.
Bowl team.
This was probably. I don't disagree. I think any other team outside the Kansas City probably would have given them a little bit more for their money there. But I do think that they were probably the best of the NFC of the NFC. The Rams. Again, we were so close in overcoming that, and we were probably. And again, everyone's been saying it. We were probably the best team that the Eagles faced in
I
the
mean, we
playoffs,
were. That's just
and it does kind of stink, when you think about, if the Rams, if that pass would have, if they would have saw Cooper Kupp or saw Tyler Higbee and was able to get that in, win that game, would we be where we're at? I'm not 100% sure. I don't think that we would have. I think the game would have been closer than what we saw in the Super Bowl, but in the end, you can't dwell on it. You have to move forward. The Rams are moving forward. We
it
have
was a good
no
season.
idea really. It was. We have no idea where the Rams are going to move on from here, which is kind of what this whole episode is kind of going to be about. Is where are the Rams going from here? A lot of interesting things that have happened in just really 2 weeks. Both from a good side of things, if you look at the NFL honors, but also from the bad side of things about what they're looking at with Cooper Kupp and potential other losses.
Mhm.
So you want to start with the
And
good news, or do you want to start with the rougher news?
let's start with the good news. Jared Verse, defensive rookie of the year, very much well deserved. I just thought every time when we watched the game, he would be so disruptive. Now, early on in the season, he had some issues like speed of the game. You could tell he wasn't able to catch up to it. At times, he was a little bit too quick, especially with his power moves and stuff like that. So, just credit to him. He grew. You could tell he was learning as the season was going on. And by the end of the season, Zach, we had a certified amazing stud there. And the only reason he didn't have high sack numbers was because the rest of our line was eating because they were all getting
Yeah.
constant pressures. I think this D line needs to really hold its head up high with the fact that we had 3 sacks less than the postseason record, only 2 playoff games. I mean, just a credit to all 4 of those guys for growing, or 5, growing and like progressing throughout the season. I still think we need a little bit run stopping help, but Jared Verse, just fantastic season by him.
Yeah, unbelievable. And I think his future is definitely bright. Like you said, he had the highest number of pressures by far of anybody. I think, again, you go back to the sack number. I think he could have had a lot more in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
But it was some of those things that we talked about of he is a rookie. He has to learn the difference of speed. And sometimes he would overshoot the quarterbacks a lot. And so he would get to the quarterbacks, but he would overshoot them. And that's stuff that he cleaned up throughout the season. And we really saw that matureness from him. And so I definitely think 2025 is going to be a bigger year for him. I think we're going to see, more sacks. I would probably predict that we would see double what we saw this year from him if the trajectory that he's going is going up. So big kudos to him for getting Defensive Rookie of the Year. Bad side of the NFL honors is that my man Torrey Holt still did not get into the NFL Hall of Fame. I think that is tragic. I don't like the fact that they only picked 4 when they could have picked a 5th spot. It's the first time they haven't had a 5th member put into the Hall of Fame. There are a lot of good candidates out there that could have filled that 5th spot, but I think Torrey Holt has been there for so long. Been a finalist for so long that I think he really, and again, just his proof of work. It's not the fact that he's been the finalist for so long. His proof of work is there that should put him into that Hall of Fame spot.
He's one of the best of his generation, and it's really silly that he hasn't been in. That's not a homer thing. That's just, it's silly he didn't get in. So
thoughts about the Kobe Turner dance? Did you watch the honors? Did you watch?
No, I didn't get to see his dance, but Kobe Turner, he has some moves, so I would expect it to be pretty good. And let's just say our boys also got robbed last year of Defensive Rookie of the Year and Offensive Rookie of the Year. So this team practically has 3 Rookie of the Year winners in their first and second year, and it's just so amazing how young and talented this team is going into this next season with money. Zach, we got cash. We got cash for once.
We do have cash, but what we're spending that cash on is going to be something we're going to talk about here in just a second. Yeah. But before we talk about that, everyone, please go. If you're watching us live, if you're watching us not live, please follow us on all the social media platforms. You can find us on X at East Coast Rams. You can find us at youtube.com/@EastCoastRams, Instagram and Threads at eastcoastramspod, and definitely on Blue Sky. We'll talk about more about that at the end of the show, but we need to make that plug here. All right. Future of the Rams.
While we're talking too, guys, give us your comments either down below or in the live chat if you're here live. Tell us what you think about all this drama and stuff, because I'm going to have some opinions, and I don't think a lot of people are going to like my opinion. So I'll be interested.
And I think me and you are going to disagree on a lot of the opinions of the Rams.
As we
normally do. So let's talk about the big thing, the thing that we all know for sure. Well, for sure. Because it came out of Cooper Kupp's mouth, is the fact that he is being there are talks now of trading Cooper Kupp. Obviously, it is not official. Nothing is official until the deal is done. But he did come out and say, again, this was over a week ago now, the Monday, a week from yesterday, I was informed that the team will be seeking a trade immediately and will be working with me and my family to find the right place to continue competing for championships. I don't agree with this decision, and I always believe it was going to begin and end with the Rams. That's just the very beginning snippet of his pretty lengthy post. But I'm going to kick it over to you first. What are your thoughts? I mean, this seems to be the end of Cooper Kupp. It's not done. Things could happen. That's me plugging in hopefulness as always. But this does seem like the door is, the door's open. He's going to be pushed out the door, and they'll probably seal it from behind. So, what are your initial thoughts when you saw this post?
I mean, I'm just gonna say I kind of felt like this was pretty telegraphed the last few months of the season that he wasn't going to be back. But real quickly, Zach, do you think they asked him to cut his salary and he refused? Do
I
you
don't think
think
so. I think
so?
Cup
You
was
think
one
they're
of those
just
people
cutting
who could
ties?
have worked. I think Cup is one of those players who would have worked to try to figure something out. And again, you say that
Uh,
I get to the point where the reason why he got his new contract was because of his previous work. So when they won the Super Bowl, a lot of that contract money was because they won the Super Bowl. They came out and said that. Like a lot of these contracts were given after the Super Bowl because of that accomplishment. If they didn't win the Super Bowl, we probably would have seen potentially a Cooper Kupp get cut early, things like that. But that didn't happen. They won the Super Bowl. He was the Triple Crown winner. And so I don't know. I still think it's a big disservice to the Rams organization and to Cooper Kupp himself to not even if they didn't have that conversation of restructuring, they should have. But to just push him out the
mhm.
door and say sorry, we're going to move on from you. I think that is a little bit of a disservice. I know I got a lot of pushback on social medias about that. I'm very much in the Cooper Kupp camp. As one does, you're going to pick a camp one way or the other. But I definitely believe that Cooper Kupp was the heart and soul of this team, outside of Sean McVay. Um, I truly believe that. I think whether you like Stafford or any of the other players on the team, I truly believe that Cooper Kupp was the heart and soul. Whether he was injured or not, he always put the team first. I think Puka Nacua would not be Puka Nacua without the guidance of uh, Cooper Kupp. I think Puka would have been a great player. Don't get me wrong. All the catches is his own body of work. But I think Cooper Kupp prepped him in a way or helped prep him in a way that made him succeed faster and on a higher trajectory than I think without Cooper Kupp. So I think he brings more on the field than off the field. I also will say I do understand that Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are pretty much the same person when it comes to a receiver level. I just wish we had someone who was a little bit more of a speedster, which I know that's kind of what I think the Demarcus Robinson, thing was going to be. That we still could have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and have somebody be a third weapon on the field. I'm gonna stop ranting. I'm gonna let you go, Ashton.
No, I get it. I mean, so ultimately, we don't know if they did or didn't. I think my kind of point there is people are assuming one way or the other. We just don't. We won't know until that's reported. But you can't pay a guy $30+ million and have him just not be able to produce at a high level as a top one, at least a top two wide receiver. And Kupp, when he was on the field, wasn't that. He just wasn't able to produce this year, and you could
I'm gonna
see now whether or not he was hurt or there's other things that could have gone into that, and I can't speak to, but on the field product just wasn't there for a $30 million plus wide receiver. We had the most expensive offense in the NFL, and they had two good games the entire year. That is unacceptable. Cup still could block, but
a lot of that money is on the tight ends. We've talked about that before. We're paying tight ends way too much money in the field. But I'm going to push back about the whole Cooper Kupp did not perform well. I get it. He had more touchdowns than Puka Nacua. He did have 200 less yards. We know Puka Nacua is going to get all the yardage. We do know that. but he was only trailing him by 200 yards. He was averaging over 60 yards per game. And the worst games that the Rams had were where they couldn't do anything. They couldn't score anything. And I don't know if it was in the rain, it was in the snow, it was in the cold. I don't know what was affecting it. Stafford was injured for the December period where, yes, we were winning the games, but we were winning them ugly and low scoring. I don't want to put all this blame on Cooper Kupp's lack of performance. I think a healthy Cooper Kupp isn't going to be an elite Cooper Kupp. And I don't want the Rams, I just think that this was a bad decision. I'm going to leave it at that. I think that he provides more on the field and off the field. And I think that when Kupp goes to a new team, he's going to be another huge threat for that team.
So I think my only rebut to that whole thing is last 2 years, he hasn't stayed healthy. And you mix that with the fact that Puka hasn't stayed healthy either. You can't have two injury-prone wide receivers, and that's what Kupp is now. He's had 3 seasons straight of getting injured and being out long periods. So we need a more reliable wide receiver too. I don't necessarily think he's washed or gone. Maybe he was hurt, and that was a big part of it. But we can't just keep on waiting for him to get healthy and have an ineffective offense.
I don't like the whole injury prone. Every player is injury prone. If you tell me that there is an NFL player who has come into the league without an injury, I would say you're probably crazy. I mean, every player is injury prone. You look at Stafford. I mean, yeah, Stafford's tough. He's the man. He's the quarterback that I want. Don't get me wrong about him. But he's injury prone. I mean, every year he's injured. And again, you could say, well, that's the offensive line not protecting him, blah, blah, blah. Again, still injury prone. I don't like that excuse. I think, any year he could be the healthiest he can be, and any year he could be the most injured. You go from his high of highs from early in a season to then dropping down because he was injured, missing a Super Bowl, and then going out and becoming the Triple Crown winner. Again, I know he's aging out. He's going to start decreasing, but I still think that he is in that upper tier of wide receiver. He may be falling down. He may not be at the top, 5 or 10, but still being in that top 20, top 25 in a wide receiver, I still think is really good. And I think it's going to be detrimental to building the new core of receivers for the Rams.
Yeah, losing his experience, but like you saw this year, because he had so much money tied up into his contract, they felt like they had to start him over wide receivers that were performing better. Whittington should have got more snap.
I don't think Whittington was performing better. You give me this.
He was blocking better. He was blocking better. He had a better average yards of separation. He had one of the best separation yards per separation in the entire NFL. He was like 8. He was top 10, and that was for all the routes he did get the run. Now I understand he has lower end DBs on him, but he would always come in to fill Kupp, and he was just way more open. Like I was watching Kupp specifically for the last 7 or 8 games.
Kupp was wide open in multitude of those games. Cooper Kupp was wide open, and Stafford threw to a different receiver multiple times. He picks Stafford. The one problem I think Stafford has is that I feel like he really, when he gets on a roll with a wide receiver, he tends to favor that wide receiver for better or for worse. I mean, you got Puka Nacua doing amazing catches out there. Great. You had Cooper Kupp when he was the Triple Crown winner. Amazing out there. Again, we disagree on this. Totally understand. And that's why you guys hopefully come to us, is that we have 2 different takes. You could be on the trade Cooper Kupp take, and you could be on the we should not trade Cooper Kupp take. I'm not saying either way is right or wrong until we see the future. Obviously, hindsight is always 20/20. But again, knowing this organization always does right for the players, and I get that. I do hope that we do have a beneficial agreement coming out of this. But again, try to restructure the deal. And if it comes out that we did try to restructure, then I'll take everything I said back. But I think Cooper Kupp wanted to stay. He wants to fight for this team. I think he has a lot of gas in the tank. Even today, he is working out with Puka Nacua in the offseason. We got that from him and Puka today, that they are still training in the offseason. So maybe there's still a chance that he could stay a Ram. But
Yeah.
I just want to say that I think the Rams organization, for as much as Cooper Kupp has put into this team, bringing in a fan base. I mean, there's not a person you don't know who doesn't know who Cooper Kupp is, and a lot of fans have become Rams fans because of Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
And so I think you're losing your pillars, and I know we have to bring new pillars in, and maybe Puka Nacua is that person. Love Puka, but I just was hoping they would do better for Kupp. Let's give him another year or two, and then, hopefully maybe at that point he would retire and we could all live under the sunny umbrella of Cooper Kupp retiring as a Ram.
So don't get me wrong. I would prefer if they restructure and UB says, like, I would love a mutually beneficial agreement. I feel like for 15 mil, 17 mil, I feel like Kupp would be great to come back. My only problem was, like, when you have someone performing better, it doesn't matter the amount of money they make. That person, the better person, should be getting the snaps. And I felt like with Cooper Kupp, that wasn't happening. People can disagree. But either way, I feel like Kupp, if he gets a pay cut, like, yeah, please bring him back. But he got paid for the Super Bowl. He got that extension. I think now the Rams are in a different phase, in a different moment. And they're probably going to decide to be win now. And maybe we can talk about that next, Zach, whether or not you think this team is all the way win now next year, like we're going to win a Super Bowl, we're going to be aggressive about it, or they're still trying to rebuild, or if they have 2 feet in both camps. And
I think it all depends on that. I think it's going to come down to kind of the next rumor mill news of what's happened with Stafford. I think that really will tell the tale of which side of the coin the Rams are going to be on. Because again, there's quarterbacks out there that you could probably go get. If you want to try with Aaron Rodgers, if you want to try with Kenny Pickett, if you want to try with Sam Darnold, if you want to try with some of these players, you can, but I don't think you're going to be better than having Matthew Stafford on your team. Again, I love Stafford. He is that elite quarterback that I think the Rams need. But then you have to look at what pieces are you going to fill. I think this has to be an all-in. You are going to waste the rookie contracts of Puka Nacua, of Kyren Williams, of Jared Verse, of Brandon Fisk, of Kobe Turner, of Byron Young. Like, we have elite players on this team. Steve Avila, you have elite players on this team right now that you should take full advantage of it, because there is no way we can pay for a Steve Avila, a Puka Nacua, a Byron Young, a Jared Verse, Fisk, Kobe Turner. Those players are going to have to go. Someone is leaving at the end of those tenure. And so this is you have your defensive rookie of the year. You need to get as much out of this as you possibly can with a young, talented team. And I think Stafford is the way that we have to. And all of these crazy
So what do you pay Stafford?
I think you're looking in the mid 40s, upper 40s. I don't think you quite hit the 50 mark.
I personally would hope he wouldn't ask for 50. I'm not saying he hasn't earned it. We just can't afford that. And be
competitive. And that's what I've always said. Is like, I get it. Stafford wants to get paid. I get it. He's been doing this for a long time. But at some point, do you want the championship that he says he wants, or do you want all the money? Because at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to be able to get both. He might.
It's going to be really hard. The Rams have to basically, we're only in this position because even with all the dead cap we've had the last 3 or 4 years, we've had 2 drafts literally back to back that are probably the best Rams drafts from top to bottom we've ever had. Like if you're looking from like two classes together, that you only have 3 or 4 misses out of like 20 players, it's ridiculous. And so we have a situation where you have a good young team, but we have to build around Stafford. And I hope Stafford realized when he was clean, he could win. And I feel like the money comes with winning afterwards. And that's what Tom Brady was so good at. That's what he understood that so many other QBs at his time didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I love to see more incentive based contracts than just full out, pay the people. Um, I think you should get paid for what you provide. And if you provide, getting us to the playoffs, getting that, I think those incentives should be kicked in at that point. Um,
Mhm.
but again, like Stafford has to figure out, what does he want? Does he want to move away? Does he want to have a bigger payday? Does he want to win championships? And can he do everything? Can he do all of that? Can, is it going to be a good move to try to learn a whole new system? He has a good system with with McVay. They know how to win. But you also kind of you lose someone who you talk to day in day out with Cooper Kupp, about plays, and whether he's targeted the most, he still talks to him the most. They still design plays and they still run plays and concepts in their minds. Um, will they have the same relationship with Puka and Stafford if they can get it worked out? I do believe they're going to work it out. I think the Rams would be insane not to come to some sort of deal.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's
again,
not the rookie class and not the free agent class. I think the only one that is semi decent would be Sam Darnold. And even then, you're taking a big step back because you have to have a perfect line in front of Darnold to be good.
exactly, I 100% agree with that. And it's just going to come down to, are we serious or are we not? But it will come down to at the end of the day, it's going to come down to those dollars. If Stafford is not refusing to get paid less than what Brock Purdy is going to make, or because that situation is ridiculous. But if he doesn't try to work things out, I've been listening to the Kelly Stafford podcast, just because she gives out tidbits from here and there. The one thing that I kind of disagree with is, like, the ball's not in their court, it's in the Rams court. I feel like that would be a big disagreement with me, because it's like, it's a negotiation. This isn't a one team is going to do something else. If Stafford doesn't agree to a contract, then the only thing the Rams can do is trade him away. Like, they're not going to cut him. They're going to have to trade him. But I don't foresee that. I
That would
foresee
be
this
wild,
as
man.
but I think you're going to say, well, the Rams traded him. Well, yes, but Stafford also they couldn't agree on a contract number. And so I think that there's skin in the game for both sides. And
Yeah,
Stafford could take less money if he really wants to keep Kupp. There are those situations where, how invested are the Rams? But we don't get to know any of those behind the scenes.
yeah, and me and you are always like player first when it comes to like, hey, when you want a salary, you know your worth, go get the bag, go get paid. Like, I'm not advocating for anyone to value themselves less. I'm just saying from a real money standpoint and how this team has team built, they always go the extra mile, giving people the bag, and it's hurt the team multiple times, especially with certain contracts. And
Yeah, I mean,
Stafford just has to realize we don't have the cap situation to have a QB take 50 mil when he's later in his career. Like, we don't have that cap
I'm
situation.
I'm still in the mid, I'm still in the mid 40s here. Like, let's somewhere between 42 and 46. Let's work out a deal. I mean, that's still a heck of a lot of money. Like, like, sometimes I'm just like, what do you really want to buy in your life that you need all of that money? I get it. He works super hard.
It's
I get
value,
it.
man. It's
Is
feeling
value.
like you're worth.
But
And
like,
even though like the team, you should know the team values you. They just want to build more around you to get championships. And I feel like that should ultimately like help you
Well,
realize like your legacy comes from that.
that's kind of the Tom Brady effect. I mean, the Tom Brady didn't
Yeah.
always take max amount at the end of his career because he wanted to win championships. And the way to do that was to try to have, team friendly contracts. You still get paid a lot. He's still going to get paid a lot. And, you try to win those championships. And do you want to do it on this team or another team? That's going to be him. But you kind of brought up some of those contracts in the past. I mean, Todd Gurley is one of those examples where we paid a lot of money. Jared Goff is one of those other ones as well. And Todd Gurley, as much as everyone wants to go back to that, he did have a knee injury that was a chronic injury that we couldn't get fixed from there. Robert Woods, obviously, that was after the Super Bowl year. He was coming off an injury, didn't play again for the Rams after he was injured. That's when we got Puka and things like that started to roll. And then obviously Jalen Ramsey, we all know about that. But again, it's one of those positions that the Rams aren't going to continually overpay for in those realms. I just think when you talk about those three players specifically, I think Cooper Kupp is different from those. As much as I love Todd Gurley, I think his injury prone was more to me, I get it. He had a chronic knee injury. He was never going to be the same. He was going to fall drastically. I think that's different than what Cooper Kupp's injury history has been. And then obviously I talked about Robert Woods and then Jalen Ramsey. Again, I think it's more of a business decision as far as that's just the Rams. They don't pay cornerbacks long term.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what they do, whether or not the Rams are actually going to be, because this is one pet peeve of mine. I do not like it when teams are half in, half out when it comes to going for a Super Bowl or trying to build. I get the last 2 years, but I feel like now you have a foundation that you need to push all the chips in. I'm for trading first round picks. Next 2 or 3 years, I'm for going and trying to sign big free agents, make big splashes, and going for a Super Bowl that, I mean, I feel like we had a shot this year. You put more chips in the basket. Like, I feel like we get over, and if we had a better line, if we had a little bit more weapons, we're not in shootout. We beat Philly by 3 to 7 points, and we're on the way to NFC Championship against a Washington team that had a weak O-line. So going after cornerback, going after safety, filling the rest with this next draft, there's a lot of potential in free agency, and I feel like this team has to swing for the fences and not be afraid to go after some positions with trades.
So do you think the Rams are going to go after a wide receiver? Do you think a Devontae Adams is somebody who you would look at to bring in to complement
Devontae Adams?
I mean, that's the one that everyone's talking about right now. Obviously, I don't want to talk about the 49er who will remain nameless. He shall not be named on this podcast as a potential Rams addition.
No.
If you do it, I'm going to rake you over the fires. But
he doesn't fit. Doesn't fit us.
He doesn't
really,
fit. I mean, T. Higgins would be a good bring over. Whether the Bengals will figure something out to keep him and Jamar Chase in Cincinnati, we'll see. But those are the kind of the two players off the top of my head that keep coming back to potential pickups.
So I think mostly Higgins is the biggest one that I would want to go after, and then secondary is the young Jets wide receiver. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but the Jets are going to be in a fire sale. They should be soon. Like that organization, oh my gosh, what Aaron Rodgers did to him, that entire situation is messed up, and they need to rebuild. That's a team that definitely should sell some of their assets. And Garrett Wilson is who I'm trying to think of. I think Garrett Wilson is a fantastic wide receiver. He just hasn't had anyone good to throw to him. And him with Puka Nacua, like I would say he's a good route runner, but he's not as good as Kupp. And I would say Puka's a little bit better right now, but he's super physical and makes some amazing catches. And I just like his physicality, his speed. And I feel like this team lacks speed outside of Tutu, which they just didn't put him on the field. But he's big and fast. And I feel like that's someone Stafford would gravitate to as a secondary wide receiver. So you can't just double Puka the entire game.
Yeah. 100%.
Puka better than Garrett Wilson. They're different wide receivers. They have different jobs. I feel like Puka makes better catches and he's more open consistently. Garrett Wilson's better at catching contested balls. So, like, that's my opinion. You can disagree. They're both very close to each other. They're both great. Like, what I'm saying is you put them on the same field together, then it'll just be beneficial for both of them. Because neither has had a other X type of wide receiver next to him. I mean, you could say Wilson had Devontae Adams, but then Devontae Adams just hogged up all the balls because for some reason
the Rams they need to find red zone targets. They need to get someone who's going to be physical in the red zone or in the end zone because, I mean, God almighty, like, we that's where, again, we seem to struggle a lot in that. I mean, Kyron Williams was our kind of our workhorse when it came to the offense because he was the only one who could seem to score a touchdown. 14 of his own, he scored 14 of the Rams touchdowns. The receiving core as a whole only scored 22, with Demarcus Robinson and Cooper Kupp catching, 13 of those just between the two of them. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I get really weird about it.
Yeah, man, Puka has made some of the most ridiculous catches I've ever seen multiple games in a row in a single season, in 2 seasons in a row. You can have your opinion. I just feel like Puka is an amazing wide receiver and they both would work well together. But to answer your question, Zach, we need a tight end. We need a big, aggressive end zone tight end, someone that we can help get open coverage so people don't just ignore our tight ends for the most part. You saw a little bit of that with Higbee coming back, but the draft, I feel like this is a super rich tight end draft again. Now, the high isn't as high as the last few drafts. You had some amazing tight ends in the last 2 drafts, some elite tight ends. But this year, I feel like you do have some good quality in the latter half of the first round, early second. Just to tell you, Zach, I'm a big fan of Colson Loveland. I feel like his blocking is good. His route running is solid. His catching is decent. But I feel like he's a very good tight end too in this class. And then the Miami tight end in the Reese Bowl, like, this, Zach, the Rams love themselves some Reese Bowl prospects. They love the Senior Bowl. And this tight end from Miami was dominating for most of the practices, had a decent game. I think he would be a great addition in the second round. I'm a big fan this draft, Zach, trading back, because I feel like there's some good quality wide receivers and a good tight end class that you can go after in the mid-second round. And then there's Jack Beck from TCU, amazing wide receiver in the second round. I feel like he would be really solid. Kyle Pitts would be good too. I feel like he struggled a little bit, especially with catching, which who would have thought after his college days. But the Falcons just never tried to use him until last year, which is crazy.
I wouldn't put too much on that, just on his. I don't know. I think he's just had a rough time in the Falcons, and maybe getting away from them might be a good.
That would be a good pickup.
So I do like that.
He's going to cost you, though, and that's the problem. I almost don't think we can go tight end free agency because we have so much money in the next 3 years tied into three guys who one is mid, so to say, and then the other guys are completely subpar. Like they're all good blockers, but we don't get anything out of the receiving game with them.
So yeah, so good options because again we're gonna be low on wide receivers coming kind of after this season.
Yeah.
With Tutu Atwell becoming a free agent, I don't foresee the Rams bringing him back unless there's some sort of very contract friendly.
You think they bring back D-Rob?
I do think that they will have the option to bring back D-Rob. Whether he stays at that 3 possession, but that just depends on who else they get. Like if they get a Devontae Adams or if they get a Kyle Pitts or they get someone, a Garrett Wilson, if they try to go, they're fully all in, we may see the shift of Demarcus Robinson a little bit. But I don't
What do you think?
Robinson...
What do you think of any of the other wide receivers from the old man club, the Keenan Allens, the kind of like journeyman veteran types? Are there any people in that group that kind of catch your eye?
I don't really think so, only because then why would you get rid of Cooper Kupp? Like it's one of those things where like at that point, then I don't know why you're doing that. I mean, you could give me the list and I can kind of think about, like, I don't have all of who are the upper tier veteran core of the receivers who are looking for a home. Tyreek Hill, I don't know. That's what
Stephon Diggs
put in. Tyreek Hill, he's maybe
Stephon Diggs, Chris Godwin. I feel like Chris Godwin, he's 29. That's not terrible, right? I feel like Chris Godwin, he's had an up and down season, getting hurt and then coming back. But I feel like he's someone who you can't say he hasn't had a good QB. I just feel like he's kind of been in the shadow of Mike Evans for a while.
Sure. I mean, I would be happy with a lot of those players. I just still feel like, you go back to that and you're like, well, how about Godwin? Well, he also has injury prone. Like, I feel like we just go back to this whole thing where I'm like, okay, so again, what's your point? Like, why? If you're telling me we're going to get Devontae Adams or we're going to get Garrett Wilson or we're going to get, some of these other players for Cooper Kupp, I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But when you tell me you're going to get Godwin or Allen or, some of these other players, I'm like, then why are we moving on for Kupp? Because we're probably going to pay him almost the exact same that we're going to pay Kupp, even or if we could restructure him. Like, those are the things that I think about. Again, obviously Cooper Kupp fan, but again, if there's a good solution out there that's going to help this team win a championship, I'm all open to those ideas.
Yeah, I do like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine from Titans. I feel like he's someone who's hasn't had a lot of good luck with quarterbacks. He's been relatively healthy. He's 28, so he's like older, but I feel like he's someone who could kind of fit in and be a good depth piece there. 28. So Stephon Diggs is kind of interesting, but like you said, I would prefer T. Higgins or trading for someone and trying to get a little bit of value there. Someone a little bit younger that could be matched up with Puka for a foreseeable future. Because if we're looking at it realistically, we got, 2 more years of Stafford? Would you say that?
Yeah.
So you want younger, other offensive tools, so when we have a rookie come in, they can kind of be more eased into the NFL and have like a good surrounding cast around them. Kind of like what you saw in Washington, where they didn't already have the players, but they brought in a lot of veteran players to be kind of help ease Jaden Daniels, and it also helps that he was amazing. So,
I mean, it would be interesting to see what a veteran receiver would be with a Matthew Stafford, because we really haven't seen that. Cooper
I
Kupp
mean,
probably would have been Kupp would have been the closest to that. I mean,
he was in league for 4 years, so yeah. I mean,
but other than that, like we haven't really, and that was the first season. I mean, they had Van Jefferson, who he was kind of, more or less, he was going off. I mean, he caught Stafford's first touchdown for, what was it, 60 plus yards.
well, that's because the Bears can't tackle. But
But you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of
yeah,
the players that he's played around have been, on the younger side. Like again, Kupp being probably the oldest of that core. Obviously, again, they've tried things with, the other Robinson,
yeah.
and some other
I
things.
was gonna bring him up because I feel like a big thing that Stafford hasn't shown with us that he had with the Lions a lot was big possession, physical, attacking the football wide receivers. Now we kind of got a little bit of that with Demarcus Robinson, a hair of it, but I feel like Stafford loves to have those high point balls just right over a DB that people can like moss other people with. And that's why Garrett Wilson kind of is super interesting, and you could say T. Higgins probably to a little bit less of an extent, but both would be like good plug and plays. Hopefully, now we
Do
said the
you know
same
how
thing with
many
the
of
last one, but
Yeah. Do you know how many of those players, those teams play kind of the McVay wide receiver offense where they're playing they're doing a lot of the blocking. Um,
uh, the Bengals because of Zach Taylor. I mean,
sure.
they have a lot of blocking in there and like motion blocking and stuff like that. So I would imagine T. Higgins out of all of them would be the most familiar. Now I'm trying to think who's the Jets' last offensive coordinator. I I just think both of those guys are so good. It doesn't really matter. They would get
Sure.
integrated pretty quickly.
That's my
And to
only
my
concern is
knowledge,
do they have
both block really well too. So
that'd be my only concern is the blocking that the Rams utilize for success. I also want to make sure that anybody we bring in who is either a veteran or looking for that their first contract um, is someone who's going to put in that kind of you know groundwork.
yeah, I'm not as worried about that just because their first two, like Puka and looking at Whittington, like they both have great blocking. So I feel like that's going to be something. Hey, and that's a other thing we're not talking about right now is what if they don't really sign anyone? They draft a few kids and they make Whittington the two. Like that's a possibility, really. Like if they feel like they can't cop up the kind of draft capital to get some of the top guys or pay T. Higgins in giant bag, what if we have the number two in house and they draft a few kids to kind of go behind them just in case? That's an option.
It is something. It's definitely something. I just feel like Puka Nakua is going to play better when he's going to be a duo. And I know you said you've seen enough from Whittington. I'm not saying I haven't seen good things from Whittington. I don't think I have seen enough from Whittington to put him in a wide receiver 2 or even wide receiver 3 spot yet.
He didn't get snaps. When he got the snaps, he was playing great.
But I mean, other than Cooper Kupp, which again, you go back and you look at this season, Cooper Kupp did not play 100% of the snaps when he was on the field.
Well, I mean, he was fighting with D-Rob and Cup and Tutu for snaps the entire time. And I feel like he started more in the last 3 or 4 games getting more and more snaps after the other players started coming back healthy. When he got snaps and he was on the field, to me, he was playing great. I now again caveat that with he was playing not against number one corners. I understand that. But you go up against who you're against, and he was doing a good job. And he was blocking well. So
I want Whittington to do well. I just want to say that. I do think he has the capability. I just haven't seen enough.
I
bolster
mean,
him.
I'm
He's tall
sold
from
because
from
I'm a dynasty owner, so I gotta sell my own. I gotta huff my own supply there just because hopium. But hey, we'll
but
see. We'll see what they do.
But other than that, I mean, you look, Tutu's probably going to be gone. There's other big news
Yeah.
or big contracts out there that they're going to have to figure out. Alaric Jackson, what are they going to do with him? What are
Yeah.
we going to do about our whole, Jonah Jackson problem that we kind of have currently? Um,
So,
there's
do we want to talk about Jonah or Alert Jackson real quickly?
Again, I think this is where we're going to disagree, but go ahead.
I'm just wondering because you're forgetting our other left tackle that's getting paid starting left tackle money that's also going on. How dare you, Zach, forget about our boy No Boom? You forgot about it. You didn't even mention him. Didn't even mention him. 17 million and just yeah. So what do you guys think of Alaric Jackson, Zach, coming back? Like, I feel like he's good, but is there any free agent that interests you? Like Cam Robinson from the Vikings, he had a decent, good year. Ronnie Staley, I think Ronnie Staley would be an upgrade. Tyrone Smith, he had a bad year with the Jets, 35, so a little bit older. I would stick with Larry Jackson over him. I wouldn't be upset with Tyrone Smith.
If the numbers
Uh,
are right, I would say sign with Alaric Jackson. I think he is a steady workhorse who is going to put in the work. I think he's going to fight for this team. I think he would fight for Stafford. Um, in my opinion, again, there are players that I would be okay with leaving the team. I'm not I want to keep every Rams player every year for eternity. I know that's not how this works. I get that. Um, but I do think I do really like Alaric Jackson. I think that is a spot that we definitely we want continuity in, and he's been very successful at that spot. Um, so for me, I say keep him. But
I'm fine giving him a 12 mil contract. I feel like he's a good player. 12, 15 mil, I would be fine with that. Bro Chaco says, what about Palmer from the Chargers as a good wide receiver pickup? Yeah, I think he would be decent. I don't know how good he is at blocking. I'm trying to think. I watched more wide receiver. The tough thing was he didn't get a lot of snaps this year, and I was watching mostly their rookie because I had him in Dynasty. So I don't remember thinking he was particularly bad. Palmer at blocking. That's going to be the big thing, like Zach said. Can they block and can they buy into the system? And, you know, I don't necessarily think that's a bad choice there. Let's see. Who else do the Rams got? 2024 team. See. Anyone else we're losing?
let me pull up that list. I had that list, and let's see. So
Free agency. Boop.
Demarcus Robinson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Michael Hoyt, which I do like Hoyt. If the deal is right, I would want to keep Hoyt around. Tutu Atwell, Christian Roseboom.
I think Hoyt is fully gone. Yeah, I don't think they can afford his contract. Witherspoon, I hope they re-sign Witherspoon. Man, uh,
Witherspoon, Hunter Long is a free
yeah.
agent, so we may get rid of one of the tight ends. Um,
Oh,
Roseboom, Jonah
yeah,
Johnson,
your boy Troy Reader.
Troy Reader. Yeah, he's
Can't,
there. Um, you know,
you're worried about losing Havenstein?
um,
Uh,
I'm worried about the future of that spot. I mean, I don't think we're going
Yeah,
to
we
lose
need a
games.
right tackle.
I
And
I do hope that they draft a right tackle that maybe could potentially like in the in the upper tiers
second
that maybe could
or
take over.
third.
Yeah, the second or third that can take
We don't
over
have a
for game
second,
time.
so they would
Um,
have to trade back to get that.
correct.
No,
So in the yeah,
that's kind of wild too, because like they put all their money in that pot of Noteboom being his replacement and like grooming him, and it just
well, I
that
thought
did not
Noteboom was
work
left
out.
tackle. I thought they
Yeah,
were
but they
grooming him
moved
to
him to
left
right
tackle.
tackle. They moved him
Well,
to right
okay,
tackle for like
Noteboom is
two,
so the
3 years.
yeah, so Noteboom, I will say, is one of those Swiss Army knives who he can fill in pretty much at any spot that you need him to on the offensive line outside of center. Um, I think he's primarily left tackle, but he's able to, like I said, he's able to fill that void. Again, not saying we should keep him. Me personally, I'm looking at Alaric Jackson, Demarcus Robinson, Hoyt. Um, I would be okay with bringing John Johnson back again. Witherspoon, I would be okay with. I really want to bring Bobby Brown the third back, um, and I would like to also possibly look into Neville Gallimore. Um, again, if I can't get one, I'd rather have the other. Or if I can't get Bobby Brown, I would like to look at Gallimore, but I'd probably prefer Brown over Gallimore. If that makes sense.
So I will say with Bobby Brown, I do like him, but we just need right now, in my personal opinion, like we need to pay someone who's dedicated to stopping the run. I feel like Bobby
I
Brown
don't.
is good overall, but the problem is we don't need those players anymore with Aaron Donald taking care of everything and then just needing a decent overall player behind him. He was drafted to be behind Aaron Donald. We need someone that's a little bit more big, physical, can stop the run and apply pressure. And I feel like Bobby Brown doesn't. I I don't know. I wouldn't be upset if we re-signed him. Like I don't think he's going to be super expensive. He's a good player. I just feel like we need an elite pass or rush defender in the interior to help sew up and make that D line perfect. Uh, who's the was it Robinson, the D lineman we got from the Lions on our Super Bowl team? You know who I'm talking about?
What? I'm sorry. Who are you talking about? The Lions Super
the
Bowl team.
no, Lions D lineman that came from
Oh,
2020-21 and joined the D line behind Aaron Donald. I'm blanking on his name because all these names start to run together after time.
yeah.
But he was really good at stopping the run. He was big, physical. He helped Aaron Donald in that kind of stopping the run. You could say the same thing with Sue, too, right? So let me look real quickly. Interior D line, Javon Hargrave is up there. I think he would be a decent signing. He's a little bit old. Javon Kinlaw, I think he would be really good. Javon Kinlaw is Sebastian Joseph Day. He was with the Titans. We could run it back with him. Morgan Fox could bring him back, and Greg Gaines. We could just we could bring back the entire crew on bet minimum.
Nice.
Uh,
Let's work on that.
yeah.
Um,
Oh man,
all
that'd
right.
be
Well, I
fun.
think we've had our fun for tonight.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot to consider over the next several weeks. There's a lot of things coming up. Obviously, we have some of the dates to kind of keep up with. I'm looking kind of at the Rams wire as some of the more important dates to keep an eye on. February 18th to the March 4th is when teams can start using the franchise tag. Then we're looking at the Combine, which is going to be hosted again here in my city of Indianapolis. So I hopefully will be able to cover as much as I can with that. So that's
Yeah.
the February 24th through March 3rd. And then we start going into the legal tampering period for free agency in March 10th. Followed by the new year begins. The new league year begins on March 12th, where free agency officially begins. And then we start getting into the draft. which will start taking place, it's always my birthday, April 26th.
Yep.
April 24th through the 26th.
I already got 4 out of 5 of my names on my list. I have it every year. I would say for the most part, my list holds up every year. These draft stuff takes like 3 or 4 years to kind of see if it pans out or not, but it's going to be a fun one, Zach. We pick in the first round again for now.
For now.
Yeah.
Depending on if we, all right. So with that, we are going to wrap it up with this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. Thank you to everyone who joined us for the live stream. We had a lot of great people in our chat. It's always more fun to interact with you all. So again, really appreciate everybody. You can follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/eastcoastrams/@eastcoastrams. Please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to us. Let us get to 500 subscribers before the NFL New Year. That would be awesome. Leave a comment below. Do you think that Stafford will stay? Do you think the Rams should, pay him all of the money for him to stay? Or do you think that there's a cap that the Rams should this is the money line. You're either in or you're out to try to win another championship for Stafford and for the LA Rams. And then make sure you follow us on X at East Coast Rams, Instagram and Threads at East Coast Rams Pod. And you can find us on Blue Sky. If you do not watch us live, you can find us on any of the podcasting apps, including Spotify, Apple Music. Wherever you find it, you will find us. That is Ashton. I am Zach. And we will see you guys next time.